This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Mara Triangle in Kenya, where we are with three very sleepy lionesses of the Salt Lake Pride. My name is Steve Falconbridge and this is Wild Wonderland.
This is absolutely magnificent.
This is happening, folks. This is 100% live.
Here we are, we're watching the migration story unfold. Here's a lion, there's a lion right next to us.
Oh, that was close.
You can't possibly script something like this.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the season finale of CGTN's Wild Wonderland. Can you believe that 14 episodes have just flown by, and how spectacular they truly have been? My name is Jamie, and behind the camera is Craig, and we are taking you on a journey across three different but equally spectacular locations throughout Africa. Here in the Greater Kruger National Park, as well as up in the Serengeti and the Masai Mara, where the team have been experiencing the chaos that is the wildebeest migration. Now, we're sitting right next to two suckling lion cubs nestled in the heart of their pride. Now, out here, a migration would be truly welcomed because the lionesses would have plenty of food to eat. Unfortunately, it's not something that they are going to experience here. It's something that is unique to East Africa.
The red oatgrass plains of the Mara Serengeti sway in anticipation. In February, around 400,000 wildebeest are born on the short grass of the Serengeti's southern plains. Just half an hour, the calves have found their feet. And one of nature's greatest journeys begins. From the southern plains, more than 1 million animals move northwest into the Serengeti's western corridor, massing on the banks of the Grumeti River. As the rut ends, the herds gallop north once more. Eventually, 2 million grazers arrive to feast on the abundance of the Masai Mara. It begins with the trickle of the zebra vanguard, enjoying the undisturbed long grass plains, making the first crossings of the turbulent Mara River. Many fall to the rapids and the crocodiles. And then comes the main body of the migration, the thundering herds of white-bearded gnu, bleating songs of chaos in search of green pasture. The herds know the danger, but the call for food is too great. All must take the plunge. Not all will make it. For those that do, hungry prides and clans patrol the banks. For survivors, rich red oatgrass is the reward. Before it's time to cross the river again, as nature's greatest herd follows the life-giving storms and verdant plains of the Mara Serengeti for nourishment.
I've experienced the migration twice in my life, and I've watched it happen, and I have to say there is nothing quite like it on this planet. And there's nothing quite like these live safaris on this planet either. Because it is live, what that means is that you can interact with us, and you can send us through your questions or your comments on hashtag CGTNWild or hashtag Wild Wonderland. Let's do that one more time because it's a mouthful. Hashtag CGTN Wild, or alternatively hashtag Wild Wonderland. And since this is the season finale, I'd like to kick things off by asking you if you can choose what has been your favorite moment from the past 14 episodes. I'm thinking about it from my side, and it's an incredibly difficult decision to make because we've been out on foot, Craig and myself. We have seen buffalo, we have seen elephant, we have walked this particular pride of lions, although fortunately not with these little guys present, otherwise we might have found ourselves in a bit of trouble. And we have walked the incredible little chief, the young male leopard Hyenas, so much so that we actually got to the point where we could stand 15 meters away from him without him even budging from his sleep. But if I had to choose, I think that perhaps my favorite moment would be from today, watching these two adorable little creatures, seeing them with the pride for my very first time, because I have seen these cubs before, but I have not yet seen them within the Nkuhuma pride. And the Nkuhuma pride are a very, very special pride of lions to me. I've watched them for the past 4 years. Recently, we experienced the loss of one of their members, the oldest lioness, which was really very devastating. And so to see these two little ones is a special thing indeed. And it just shows the pride is going from strength to strength. Now, creating little ones, of course, if you were to go back 3 months, requires the meeting of a male and a female, which is exactly what James has across in the Masai Mara.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Masai Mara. Again, we're sitting with a beautiful herd of elephants here and a mating pair of lions, believe it or not. That's why there's so many vehicles in this particular area. It's okay, we're going to get a nice view of them shortly. They are from the Kichwa Boys and the River Pride. My name is James Hendry. We have got enormous James on camera, and it's a great privilege to have you here for the final time for CGTN's Wild Wonderland live show. Please talk to us in our finale episode, and we'll do our best to find you all of the great creatures of this magnificent continent. So, like I say, mating lions are very popular sighting, and that's why there are so many tourists here, and of course they have every right to be here, and it's great to have them here because it is their revenue that protects this wonderful area. There is the male lion. His name is Half-Tail because he's got the end of his tail chopped off, and we will try and get a little bit closer to him. I think let's try that now, actually. We'll drive a little bit closer. He's been mating with one of the females of the River Pride. There are 2 females here, and one of them is definitely not very interested in mating with him, but the other does seem to be. So while we catch up with him, let's go down south to the Serengeti, where I believe Tristan is sitting near a rock.
Well, good luck, James. Hopefully you catch up with them pretty quickly. As you can see, we're not having to worry too much about catching up at this stage, as our lions once again enjoy the sanctity of the rocks and the shade that provides. My name is Tristan, and it is a very, very warm welcome to this CGTN Live Wild Wonderland live show, and I have David with me on camera this afternoon. Now, the lions that we've got here are a little bit sleepy at the moment. These are the same lions we had this morning that were finishing up a wildebeest kill. But the reason why we came here is because at one point they were separated. And so we had the females on this rock and the young sub-adults, or I say sub-adults, they're actually still cubs, that were on a different rock. And we were hoping that they were going to come together. There was also some baboons around. And so we were just waiting to see what was going to play out. But the baboons saw the lions briefly and quickly departed the scene and have not stuck around at all, which has meant that our lions have decided to now snooze away the afternoon with those nice full bellies. And it seems the appropriate place to be. If I was a lion, I most certainly would be up on a rock at the moment, away from the flies and out of the heat. Good. While we sit here and wait and see if everybody decides to wake up a little bit later, let's send you back across to the Masai Mara with David as he follows Spotty Cat on the move.
Jumbo, and from sleeping lions to moving male cheetah. How lucky are we to see this cheetah? Listen to him. And he is calling his brother. I saw him in the morning, and they are always two, forming a coalition of two brothers, and somehow they separated this morning. I do not know for what reason, and what he's trying to do is try and catch up with his brother and find out where he is. My name is David, and on camera is Bungay. Very excited to have you on board. So what I want to do first is to move forward a little bit and see whether we can catch up with him. Normally, people have always known cheetahs to be solitary, but once in a while we've seen two together and baying males forming what we have a coalition. Let's just listen to his call. And one big difference between cheetahs and lemurs. Lorena, I agree with you. Look at that walk and listen to the call, Lorena, there. It's a great comment. Quite a majestic walk, and you can tell he is walking in pace to make sure he catches up with brother, because strength in numbers, and of course two is better than one. We're very close to the Kenya-Tanzania border, and these two particular cheetahs, you have one now, they always swing around Tanzania and Kenya, Serengeti National Park and the Masai Mara Game Reserve. I want to catch up with him again and just move as he continues calling his brother. It's very exciting today to have started with lions, and now we got a male cheetah. Apparently, we call them the border boys or the border brothers because they always live together. Well, as we catch up with him, I'll just stop here and see whether you're going to see the brother. In the meantime, we'll take you back to James with his mating lions.
Our lion's up, and he's trying to find out if one of these females is ready to mate with him. Now, the river pride is interesting and easy to identify because one of the lionesses has got a missing tail, much like this male. Now, of course, that's not going to make any difference to the cubs that they have, but the female with the missing tail is the one that he's happy to mate with. Because she seems to be receptive, but the other one with the full tail he's not actually mating with, and he keeps trying to initiate, which is unusual. It's often the females that are initiating, and so what's quite interesting here is that we've almost got a ménage à trois situation where the male is mating with two females, and I've actually never seen that before. And in the background, of course, the big giants, the real royalty of the wilderness, are looking on, along with some white egrets and storks. Isn't that lovely, peaceful kind of a shot? Anyway, now trying to see lions mate is a difficult thing, of course, because they are notoriously difficult to predict. And I know we've been extremely lucky throughout the course of the show to see lions mating, which is not something that happens very often on a live show. And hopefully we'll be able to see that with this Kichwa male and his river pride female. The elephants couldn't care one jot, of course. They really don't mind. No, Shinyu, we don't. It's a very interesting question you ask there, and it's a very good one. Because this area is so, I'm not going to say full of tourists, but because there are a lot of tourist vehicles moving through the area, the animals become habituated to the vehicles, and they are not afraid of them. They kind of see them as a part of their lives that are neither threatening nor something to eat. So they don't look at us in these cars and think, oh, there's something delicious to eat. They just kind of watch us go or past them like they would any other piece of the ecology. And if you go into an area that doesn't have vehicles and that hasn't got experience of vehicles and people, you will find a completely different reaction. So if we were to drive up to a lion that had never seen a car before, it would take off, it would run. Likewise, if I got out of the car now and ran at that lion, he would most likely run away because he'd be afraid of me. If I got close enough, he'd turn around and he'd probably smash me. But he certainly wouldn't see me as something to eat straight away. He would see me as a human being, as a threat. And that is how all of the animals out here view human beings, with one notable exception, and that is the crocodile. The crocodile seems to see us as completely fair game. We're going to wait with our lions, beautiful elephants in the background, lovely East African light. You're going to go back down to South Africa, where Lauren is with an Avoca male lion.
We do have a very fat and full Avoca male who has found the perfect spot in a dry riverbed in the shade to obviously rest and digest. He looks very uncomfortably full. Now, my name is Lauren and I do have Seb on camera, and of course we're here with this lion right now live with CGTN Wild. Now, believe it or not, Jamie is of course with the Nkahuma cubs, and this Avoca male may potentially be one of the fathers of the cubs. Now, lionesses do mate with many different males, but the Avocas are the dominant coalition with the Nkahumas. Lionesses are very promiscuous, but it is most likely one of the Avocas. Which Avoca? We will most likely never know. There are 3 of them in this coalition. Now, goodness knows what this one has ate so recently to be this full. They were obviously feeding on a buffalo carcass yesterday, but I have a funny feeling this male has something far more recent than that, and he is absolutely bulging. It's hot today, he's uncomfortable, he's breathing rapidly, and of course he's got himself in quite a unique position to obviously try and digest as much as possible. I don't quite know where his coalition mates are at the minute, but they will be around, and when he's ready to meet up with them, he will begin contact calling, which is the most amazing sound you can hear out here. So, from potential papa, we're going to send you back over to the little cubs.
Potential papa indeed. There were 3 possibilities where these cubs are concerned, and we're not quite sure which of the Avoca males is actually the father. And that's the thing about male lion coalitions, is that neither are they. So all 3 of them will accept the little ones as their own. And it's one of my favorite things, watching male lions play with the cubs that they have most likely sired. For something so large and fierce looking, they can be phenomenally gentle. It's something that I'm looking forward to over the coming weeks and months. Now, there are 6 lionesses here. There should be 8 in this pride, and I suspect that the 2 missing ones also have tiny cubs, probably even tinier than these little chaps. So these little guys are just over 2 months old. Which means that any younger than this, they wouldn't be introduced to the pride yet. Philip, while we watch this little one play, Philip says that his favorite moment was when it was announced that the duiker made it out of the mud. I have to tell you that that was a highlight for me as well. That poor little duiker was so phenomenally brave in the way that she handled it. Oh, Phyllis, you say that that was your favorite moment. It was one of mine as well. And the fact that Trishala saw her yesterday, albeit a little bit muddy, is also something that really warms the heart. Stories like that are always difficult to watch play out. And she showed such courage and determination. So while this little cub plays with its stick, we're going to try and find a better viewpoint. While we do, we're going to send you back across to Tristan as the wildebeest move across the plains.
Indeed, Jamie. I must agree with you. It's incredible to have seen the willpower and the strength
of that little duiker to try and get itself out of that mud. And actually, when you think about it, this entire area with all these wildebeest, they undergo that almost daily as they cross those rivers. It's not quite the same extent from a mud point of view, but crossing the rivers and trying to get through that is physically exhausting. Now for us, we've saved the sort of best for last in terms of scenery. This is one of my favorite spots in the northern Serengeti. It's an area that is a little marshland that runs next to some beautiful rocks, and this afternoon we've been fortunate enough to have a big chunk of the migration now funnel through this little section. It is absolutely spectacular. It is one of the most ideal places I could think of for the migration herds to be around. It's, like I say, one of my absolute favorite areas, and so to have zebra and wildebeest and just milling about in amongst the rocks is absolutely spectacular, and especially because we've got lots and lots of zebras here. Now, I'm going to try and keep quiet a little bit so you can hear some of the sounds, because the zebras and wildebeest are being quite vocal. Absolutely amazing to hear them when they call. Now, from zebras and wildebeest, they obviously aren't the only animals that are out here that are of the antelope variety. There are quite a number of numerous species.
Across Africa, there are 72 species of antelope, living in diverse habitats from desert to rainforest. Out on the plains of East Africa, speed is crucial to escape being devoured by hungry predators. Antelope do not come faster than the Thompson's gazelle, but they don't come stealthier than the common duiker, which rely not on speed, but on camouflage and disguise in the woodlands of South Africa. In East Africa, the impala are showboaters with impressive horns. While South African impala are smaller, their density is much greater. The Mara Serengeti's annual highlight is the migration of 1.2 million wildebeest from Tanzania. But it's not all about numbers. Antelope diversity is remarkable. The Defassa waterbuck of East Africa lacks the distinctive white bottom ring of its common waterbuck cousins in the south. The small oribi in the Mara thrives on the long wet grass, while the superficially similar steenbok likes the drier southern woodlands. The klipspringer lives just about anywhere there are large rocks, especially in the Serengeti. The vastly differing habitats of the Mara Serengeti and the Kruger have created myriad antelope strategies and designs for survival.
We've had a little bit of action here. The lions are uneasy and the male is growling. I'm just going to be quiet for a second. Sound, of course, as important a part of CGTN's Wild Wonderland live show as visuals, as sight. You can just hear him making a low rumbling growl. It's because he doesn't want to be separated from these females in case they're receptive to mating. While we see what happens here, I believe Jamie was sharing some memories of the week. It's been a spectacular week, and my favorite week, at least my favorite moment, was watching that pride reunite last night, the Salt Lake Pride. 3 lionesses and 6 gorgeous little cubs, and then watching them tuck into dinner together. That's been my highlight so far, but this could turn into a highlight, hopefully. I've never seen this before. It's very unusual. He's trying to keep both females with him, doesn't want them to go anywhere else. Now, that's a great question from Cranky Pangolin about whether or not males will mate, or males from the same coalition will mate with the same females in the pride. Normally what happens, Cranky Pangolin, is that one male will see a female through her estrus cycle. So she'll have an estrus cycle lasting around about 8 days or so. he will mate with her for the duration of that estrus period. If it is unsuccessful, what will happen then is she'll come into estrus again, and then it's quite possible that another member of the coalition could take over and mate. Sometimes, and quite unusually, there is a slight dominance hierarchy within a coalition, especially if the males of the coalition are not litter mates or from the same pride. And in that case, the more dominant one will most likely mate. It's not to say that the other one won't, but then there is a kind of pecking order when it comes to mating. In this particular coalition, the two males are different. I don't think that they are siblings, and if I was to pick a dominant one, I'd say it was this guy. His brother Fang has got a missing bottom left canine, and so he's easy to recognize, and he's got a slightly paler mane. It's more red colored, and that means that this big fellow here he's probably got a higher testosterone level than his brother, which will make him more prone to aggression. Beautiful shot there. As we go down to a tiny, tiny little version of what will become one of these.
Two tiny little versions of what will eventually be very large and impressive male lions, because of course both of these little cubs are males, and they've decided to come and settle in our shade. Well, they're quite close to us at the moment, so we're not going to move. We're just going to speak softly and let the little ones waddle off in the direction of Mum. Now, I can hear buffalo moving through this area a little bit to the south of us, and I think that is what has attracted the attention of the lionesses. And of course, because the cubs are seeing all of this activity, they're naturally curious. Oh wait, are you going to get a smack? You did earlier. No, not quite brave enough yet, not yet familiar enough. Instead, we're going to pounce on each other. Come on, get him. Get him. No? Oh, so much grass. Must be tough being that high. The grass keeps poking them in the nose. Now going up to one of the younger adults so that she can bat it around a little bit. This is my favorite thing about lions, is the love that they have for each other. Oh! I mean, it's a rough kind of love, but it's definitely love. And you see it so intently or so seriously when they're separated from each other, and how anxious they get and how happy they are when they reunite once again. And all of these playful moments are an important part of that entire bonding process. I think there's a chance our lioness might get up and start moving towards those buffalo. While we wait, there's a bird that we haven't seen much of out here because, or at least back up in East Africa, there's far more of them.
Indeed, welcome once again to the Mara Triangle, and if you have just joined us, you are watching the CGTN Wild Wonderland live show, and we are with a portion of the cleanup crew that makes its way following the massive herds through the migration. There you can see some of the wildebeest at the background. We've decided to leave our three very flat, very sleepy Salt Lake lionesses to themselves, and we're going to make our way into the herd and see if we can maybe get something happening that side. And my name is Steve Falkenbridge, joined by Jean-Jacques Gerding on camera, and welcome once again to the Mara Triangle in Kenya. We are very, very privileged and blessed to be here, and also to be showing you these scenes from the Mara. Now, behind us is the carcass of a wildebeest that is completely picked clean, and these vultures, I think, are just waiting for the next opportunity. There doesn't seem to be too much in the way of food where they are right now, so maybe they're just doing a bit of digesting. Not really sure. Sometimes the vultures will fly off to go and have a bath after squabbling over some food, clean themselves, and then stand in the sun to dry. Maybe they've done that already and are just waiting a little bit longer before flying off to some roosting tree where they will spend the night. Vultures are very clean animals, although most people think them quite dirty. They do bathe and wash themselves very regularly and actually are the spreaders of many diseases due to the fact that they fly long distances and use water for cleaning. But anyway, David Gitu is down on the border somewhere, and I think he's found his cheetah's favorite food.
Remember, you're watching CGTN World Wonderland Show live, and you're coming to you from one corner of the Masai Mara. Well, I left my cheetah because apparently he crossed to Tanzania. He crossed to Serengeti National Park, where Tristan is, and I think that is where most likely the brother was. Now, looking at the cheetah's menu or the diet of the cheetah, here in the Masai Mara, favorite or top on the menu list are the animals you're seeing on your screen that we call the Thompson gazelles. I would say 50% of what cheetahs eat in the Masai Mara are Thompson gazelles, but of course they may also go for other prey like impala. James, very good question. You're asking what is the most abundant, I would say, antelope outside the migration. I would say it's exactly not what you're seeing, but I would say the impalas. Outside migration, I'm saying we'll put the wildebeest out, we'll put the Thompson gazelles out, and also the elands out, which sometimes tend to tag along with the migration. I would say the most abundant antelope outside the migration, James, would be the impalas. And apparently impalas do not migrate, but you see quite a number of herds of impalas like all around the year. And they do not work with the season, they do not work with the rain, they will like be where you can see all that beautiful landscape that Bungay is showing you. Now the Thompson gazelles love this kind of openness, and that's why the cheetah we saw earlier was not very far from here, because it's still pretty close to these Thompson gazelles. Well, there are lots to talk about migration. Let's go across to Serengeti, to Tristan with his herds.
Indeed, there is a lot to talk about the migration, and often in the migration it's very difficult to pick out individuals, but this zebra has got a very unique marking on its left side. You can see the stripes have gone a little bit haywire there and have made a very different pattern, and funny enough, on its right side it has very similar markings as well around the tummy area. It's almost like the stripes have changed somewhat and they've got a little bit of a different kind of pattern, which is very, very cool. But you can see lots and lots of zebra and wildebeest spread across this entire area. And if we look to the background a little bit, we'll be able to see where the Mara is. So beyond those little rocks, you'll see some inselbergs. Now, inselbergs are small raised areas on a landscape, and those inselbergs sit inside the Masai Mara. So that's very close to where David is with his cheetah. And these herds are now pushing closer and closer towards the river and making their way in the direction of Kenya, which is very exciting for the guys on that side. But absolutely spectacular at this time of the day to be amongst these animals. The light, the greenery of the grass, and then just the sounds and the atmosphere of being inside a big herd like this is a very, very special thing. It's part of the migration that I think a lot of people overlook. Is a lot of people, want to see the crossings and want to come here and just experience them trying to cross these dangerous patches and seeing them being hunted. But the experience of being in amongst the herds and just listening and appreciating the sheer scale of it is, for me, a very special thing. Now, talking about special things, Jamie is having a very special afternoon as she gets to sit with some of the cutest babies we have in the African wilderness.
I am having a special afternoon, and for these little guys, every day is a special day because they've got so much learning and exploring to do. And of course, they've got each other for company, which means that they can be brave and go off on their own little missions, off in a different direction away from the pride. That is, of course, until Mum calls them back. Oh, what's that, guys? Did you find yourself a ball? That is a pile of elephant dung that they have discovered. I do want to move. I'm going to move a little bit. They're quite relaxed, so I don't feel too bad about it. Now, Pa Ling has asked a very good question while we take this opportunity to get a better view, because it's going to be cute up ahead. Pauling wants to know when lion cubs start hunting with the rest of the pride. And the answer is they start trying at around about a year old, sometimes even before then. Let me stop there just so we can get a nice view. And they are actually pretty ineffective and usually mess up the hunts of the adults by alerting the prey to the lionesses before the lionesses are ready to start chasing the prey. For the sort of period from around 1 year to about 2 years old, they are actually more of a hindrance than a help, but they've got to learn, and so it's all part of that process. And then after that, from about 2 years old, then they start to become a little bit more useful, and from about 3 is when they reach proper adulthood. Now you've got your ball. Come on, take it with you. No? Oh well, good point. There's plenty more to be found. Luckily, this wilderness is full of little toys for little growing lion cubs. Oh, have you ever? Look at that. I would say innocence, but I'm not quite sure that fully describes exactly all of the things bundled up into that little lion cub. Innocence, curiosity, a little bit of mischief thrown in. They were chewing on the tail of one of the younger lionesses, and she was getting so cross with them. And they just were totally disinterested in her frustration. They've put me in an awkward position now, because the lionesses have started looking towards those buffalo and started moving towards the drainage line, and I don't want to move between the lionesses and the cubs. I'm just going to sit tight for a little bit longer. What could happen is that the mother could leave them here in one of the thickets and start moving towards those buffalo. I can't hear the buffalo anymore, but I definitely heard one. And although they have just eaten, as you know, yesterday with Trishala, they were eating a buffalo. They didn't get much of it. The males took the lion's share. So they could well still be hungry, and like all opportunists, they are going to take advantage of a beneficial situation. Such beautiful light as well. It really is a gorgeous time of year to be in the Greater Kruger. I'm going to move, and I'm going to find us a nice view of the lions and their cubs. While we do that, we're going to send you across to Steve, who is enjoying a beautiful time of year in the Masai Mara.
Thank you, Jamie. And next week, I will be hopefully able to see those little bundles of joy that you have. So here we are. We've moved on from our small group of vultures into the herds of wildebeest that are flooding the plains. And the highlights for me of my time here so far have been the crossings and spending time in amongst all of these animals. Of course, seeing the Salt Lake Pride the other day, we followed them for how long, Jandra? I can't remember, with those 3 cubs walking in the road. That was very, very special. Kat, your highlight has been watching the migration. Well, we are thoroughly happy we could have brought that to your screens, and maybe one day many of you will get the chance to come out here and actually see this in person. We can describe it as best we like, but it's impossible to capture it all truly on a screen. It's the sounds and the smells all together, and also the anticipation of sitting at a crossing waiting for it to happen. You can't even read your book. You can't look left or right without hoping or expecting something to happen. And the unpredictable nature that is the wilderness here, who knows what could pop out. I mean, on our way through this morning, we just bumped into that lioness busy stalking wildebeest. It can happen just like that. So we keep scanning as we go, keep looking over the herds. It's one of the highlights we have here is we just get to sit out with the animals and go look for action. I mean, wow, terrible, terrible time we've been having sitting out here. Binoculars almost always at the ready. And, well, David is really spicing it up this afternoon. He's gone and found one of the most important creatures on the planet.
Oh, that's correct, Steve. And I do not have the huge herds of wildebeest that Steve got. I got a huge swarm of bees. Now, these bees, I'm not sure what type of bees these ones are, but they have made a nest on top of a thorn tree that we call acacia, thorn trees that we used to call acacias, and is a tortilis thorn tree, and you can see they're there in their thousands. I don't see a lot of movement on the ones that are outside, and I'm trying to guess either those ones could be the workers or the soldiers protecting the queen right inside that nest. And the beauty of the African wilderness is not only about mammals, but talking about birds, insects is always quite interesting. I'm imagining the amount of honey there, and Bungay is telling us we should come here every other day and find out whether there'll be any honeycombs dropped there. But for now, we might have to leave them so that we don't get stung by them. Why don't we go to a much bigger mammal in Africa?
We are sitting now with some elephants. We've left our lions because unfortunately they went completely flat and asleep in the grass. We might go back there a little bit later. That particular lion is relieving itself, not lion, elephant, and this one is having a nice graze. It's a youngster, and interestingly you can just see the tusks erupting there. And they're probably the adult tusks, so she's probably about 2.5 years old. Then there are two playing there. Let's go to those ones. They're having a lovely game. There. Oh, they've stopped having their game now, naturally. But here we go. Let's see if they carry on. And there's another little one thinking about having a game. And the fun for these chaps growing up in a herd is that they always have playmates and they always have protection. And if I was to be a wild animal out here, I would want to be an elephant, because you grow up with a lot of protection, unlike if you're a young wildebeest, for example. And you also have a lot of playmates. And there's no real hierarchy in an elephant herd. So you don't get a great deal of bullying. You get a bit of rough and tumble, but not much bullying. And that means that it's a very safe and comfortable place to grow up if you happen to be a young elephant in Africa. And if you're in the Masai Mara, where we are, of course, there's a huge amount to eat. Darcy, no, it's pretty equal. You can get just as close to animals here in the Mara as you can in Djuma. It feels closer at Djuma, though, because of the woodland. And so it gives it a slightly claustrophobic feeling, which means that it looks like you're closer than you are because you can't see as far behind the animals. And also, yes, we do view animals from further away in the Mara sometimes because we can see that much further. And so it does give Djuma a very intimate feeling when you're at Djuma and close to a lion, for example, because it feels like you're right in the space with them. Whereas here, because you can see so far, it often feels like it's a little bit further removed. But the animals are just as relaxed here as they are at Djuma in the Western Kruger. There's a little bit of playing going on now. Our two rambunctious ones. It's very cute and being watched by a grey fiscal. Very sweet. Now there's some debate, of course, always over who the cutest animals in the wilderness are. I think the match-up is between baby elephants and baby lions.
I have, of course, given this answer already this week as to what I think the cutest baby animal is, because I was with a leopard cub a couple of days ago, and I said it's the cutest animal is the one that you happen to be sitting with at the time, at least the cutest baby animal. But I do think rhinos are a strong contender as well, baby rhinos. But lion cubs, I mean, look at these two little bundles of mischief. Don't they see that the rest of the pride is interested in something else? The answer is no. They've gone up to Mom. They're now talking to her a little bit in their little voices. There you go. You can just hear it. Ow! It's one of my all-time favorite sounds. Hard to think of them them as fierce predators. The reason the lionesses are so alert, and I can actually see the buffalo now, but Craig's going to have a very hard time of it because he's just a little bit too far behind me. Around there is a herd, or at least a couple of buffalo walking through. I can just see a tail moving over there. Probably around about, just in that thicket, essentially. There's movement there. You can see buffalo walking along there, and that's what's attracted the lioness's attention. And that's why they're not paying any attention to the cubs, except for Mom, of course, who doesn't have an option because she's lactating. And when she least expects it, the cubs are going to latch on and make sure they get a jolly good second afternoon snack. And I've already suckled once since I've arrived here. I'm going to sit and wait and watch to see how this all plays out. In the meantime, back across to James, because I have to agree, baby elephants are truly adorable.
Here we are with our elephants, and the two ones are still having a little bit of a play. In the background, a whole lot more. Now, we spent quite a lot of time with elephants on our very first show, so I suppose it's quite appropriate that we spend some time with them in our very last one. Excuse me. Quite dusty out here. Sorry about that. My name is James Henry. On camera, we've got Big James, who is not coughing like I am. And if we go back to the elephants, what I was trying to say there, of course, is that... forgotten what I was trying to say. What was I saying? Oh, yes, I remember. I remember saying to you in the very first day that the average size herd here is about 8 animals or so. And you do get these much greater gatherings of elephants, which are normally a few herds together. There's no territorial behavior. They're all completely kind of ambivalent to each other's presence. They may fight a little bit if there's a big drought and there's no water to drink. But right now, everyone's just friends with everyone. Another good reason to want to be an elephant out here is that you meet lots of new friends all the time. These two are having a great game. You can see the one on the right is obviously much bigger than the one on the left. But he's not bullying the youngster. Although, can you imagine being spiked in the eye by those little tusks? Hopefully he'll avoid doing that. Which I'm sure he will. It's amazing how skillful they are with those tusks. And that's probably the matriarch there. She's the biggest female we can see. A slightly bigger fight going on there. Now that looks like a sort of teenage-sized bull. And he's just been chased there by someone behind him. I'm not sure who it was. Yes, déjà vu, most certainly elephants can get an abscess in their tusks. The abscess, for those of you who don't know, is the death of a root. And the root in an elephant's tusk is like an enormous kind of squid. Oh, does it get an adult pair of tusks? Yes, they do get adult pairs of tusks. All mammals get milk teeth and then lose them and get adult teeth. Just about all mammals, as far as I'm aware. And absolutely, young elephants will get a small milk tusk, and that will fall out, and then they will get their adult tusks. There we go, there's a little game again. Same chaps having a play. And as I definitely said to you before, the one behind is probably around about 2.5 years old and has just finished suckling, and so the days of playing like this are coming to an end. They will have to be more concentrated on the eating that goes with being the world's biggest land mammal. They do have to do an enormous amount of eating. A cow like the one we're looking at now probably eats in the region of 150 to 180 kilograms of food every day. I think Jamie's probably absolutely correct when she says that the cutest animal depends on who you happen to be with at the time. For me at the moment, it's definitely elephants.
For me, it's lion cubs, because that is just the way it works. It's a total cop-out, but it's a cop-out that works absolutely perfectly. Our lionesses are still alert. I can see the buffalo every now and again. They're still a way away, but there's a very good chance they're going to walk in this direction. And if they do, then we might just see something completely unexpected this afternoon. Just a quick reintroduction. My name is Jamie, and behind the camera is Craig, and we're sitting with 6 lionesses and 2 tiny little cubs on CGTN's Wild Wonderland. Now, I wonder what's going through the mind of these lionesses. They're probably watching these buffalo. I always think that there's more to hunts like this than meets the eye, or certainly that we understand. Now, often I've watched lionesses going for targets they shouldn't have, or not going for something that I thought was a shoo-in. So you never really know exactly what it is that they're thinking about or processing. And they're probably doing a head count of the buffalo, looking to see if there's a weak link and factoring in their numbers as well. Now, as I said, oh, there you go. There's the buffalo over there. You can see them moving in the distance. As I said, there are 6 lionesses. There should be 8 members of this pride. They're also missing 2 young males that spend time with them, so their numbers are ever so slightly depleted. I could be wrong, but the one lioness that I have not seen is a very, very familiar lioness. Her name is Amber Eyes, and she's something of a legend.
Djuma's woodlands are the central hunting grounds of the formidable Nguhumas. 4 lionesses form the core of the pride. The most recognizable lioness is a stocky 7-year-old called Amber Eyes, named for the burnt orange of her piercing stare. This famous pride has survived tremendous upheaval in the last few years, including 2 male coalition takeovers, drought and disease. Amber Eyes has weathered all. Yet her story is tinged with sadness. Amber Eyes remains without surviving offspring. She gave birth to a single cub, but as is the fate of so many young in the wild, the vulnerable little thing vanished soon after we met her. More recently, Amber Eyes carried another 2 cubs to term. This time, hyenas discovered the den just after the babies were introduced to the pride. The arrival of the Avoca boys brought yet more disruption. For months, the lionesses protected the sub-adults from the new males. Now things have settled, and perhaps this beautiful amber-eyed lioness will finally see her lineage extended.
Poor old Amber Eyes. She really has had a bad run of it the last year or so that I've been here. There we go. We're back. You're back in the Mara, everybody, with these sleepy lionesses that seem like they might wake up now. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and I'm joined by Jandre on camera, and we are with the Salt Lake Pride. 3 females, and we've come back just in time for the slumbering lionesses to have a little bit of a yawn. Let's see the cat stretch. That was a beautiful cat stretch. Are you going to give us a downward facing dog right on the rock there? Probably going to have a toilet break. It's normally what cats do after a bit of slumber. Oh, that is a beautiful position. Thanks for not sitting behind that lovely rock. And now these lions have been slumbering here for most of the day. We only spotted them with the beautiful use of binoculars. Ah, there we go. She's yawning. Her sisters might follow suit soon. Now, we were with the herds moments before, and we thought, let's come back because it might be time for the cats to get up. And, well, she certainly has gotten up, but hasn't gotten very far. Now, James was with this pride last night, and they left their cubs pretty much a little bit more further from where we were moments before with the herds. So we're hoping they're going to take us back to the cubs, or they might do something with the herds themselves. Well, David is still down towards the border, and he's got the tallest mammal alive.
Well, very good luck, Steve. You never know what happens with that particular pride. But apparently, when the migration is gone, the lions, like the Salt Lake Pride that Steve got, and many other prides here in the Masai Mara, will always hunt big prey for survival as they wait for the huge herds of migration to return. And giraffes are, practical examples of what they would hunt. And we got a tower of giraffes here, and these are what we call the Maasai giraffe. Now, looking at them carefully, you notice they're just eating the leaves. They tend to go for the twigs, and that's what they feed on, because giraffes are basically browsers. My name is David, and on camera, hiding behind the camera is still Bungay. It's just nice to see giraffes in such beautiful light feeding, and what they're doing, they're just browsing on top of those plants you see there. Seldomly, I would say, giraffes will not eat grass. As I said, twigs, leaves. Occasionally they will get a bark of a tree here and there, but they will not go for the grass. Look at how long tail they got. With the very end of the tail that locally here we use to make some fly whisk. Bungay can show you that tail end there. And we have lots of flies, definitely. You can tell that's why they keep flicking the tails left and right. Very majestic animals, the tallest animals we got here. And you can see when they walk in the savannah, how majestic they are. Well, from my herd of giraffes, let's go and have a look at another herd of elephants with gems.
Just parked pretty close to the elephants now, and we're kind of just absorbing the atmosphere around them. It's a Sunday afternoon, and I must say there's very little more peaceful than spending time with elephants in a situation like that. There's no threat being felt by them, there's no anger or distress amongst the herd, and they're just slowly grazing closer and closer to us. And it's the most wonderful feeling of privilege when they do this, when they are confiding and not in the slightest bit disturbed or irritated by your presence. Oh, and there's a tiny little thing coming up now. Look. Look how sweet it is. Got an itchy little eye, scratching its eye with its trunk, which doesn't work properly. The trunk is very much like watching a toddler learning to walk. You know how it takes time for a human being to learn to use his or her legs properly? So it is with an elephant's trunk. They get up almost immediately on being born, but that trunk takes a good 2 years to master because of the complicated neurology and musculature in it. So often you'll see little ones like that flicking their trunks around seemingly without any purpose, and it's because they really don't know how to use them yet. They don't use them to feed, and if you watch carefully, you'll notice that they don't stretch down to the ground like the adults do, and that's probably, we think, because they'd stand on them. And you can imagine standing on your own nose. That would be very unpleasant. I wouldn't like to stand on my own nose. And at a distance, I must say, another peaceful and majestic thing to be doing in East Africa is watching the migration herds.
Indeed it is. I'm not sure peaceful, but it is very majestic to watch the migration herds roll, especially when you have scenery like this. It's often the animals take all of the sort of thunder and steal the focus, but when you've got scenery like that, it's often really good just to stop and appreciate the fact that you're in probably one of the most epic wilderness areas in the world. It really is a special place to be, and the Serengeti for me has a very special place in my heart. My name is Tristan, and it is wonderful to be out here just gazing upon the herds. As James said, we've had a wonderful time just kind of enjoying the late afternoon and watching them. And the reason why we're here is if we pan a little bit more towards the right-hand side, the rocks that are on that side of this wildebeest herd is where our lions are at the moment. So even though they had a wildebeest meal a little bit earlier in the day, it doesn't stop them from potentially hunting again this afternoon. And it's a strategic place for them. They've got shade, and obviously it's away from flies, but it also offers an incredible vantage point to be able to view this herd as it meanders around. And so if they decide to hunt again, they can position themselves correctly in order to find the food that they need a little bit later. This herd actually is quite nice because it's not only just the wildebeest and the zebra that are in amongst this grouping as well. We've also got a few eland that are milling about inside there, and there was some baboons as well at some point that were also walking around. So a lot of the time the migration focus is wildebeest and zebra, but there's so many animals that will actually join with the herds at times and roam around with them, and when you sit and just enjoy them, it really is absolutely wonderful. Lauren, you say all these rocks are amazing. They are, Lauren, and in particular the big rock in the distance there. Now that rock, it's very difficult to get a sense of scale, but if you use the wildebeest in the background or around that rock, unfortunately there's not too many right next to it, but that rock is absolutely massive. We had a sighting of an elephant there a few weeks ago, and the elephant looked tiny, almost as though you could have put 40 elephants on top of each other to be able to kind of make up that entire rock. It is a seriously beautiful landmark, and then all the other rocks around it just makes for such a unique landscape that it is a special place to go on a safari and do a kind of journey and look at wildlife. Good, we're going to carry on. We're going to probably head back towards the lions now, see if they've decided to wake up. In the meantime though, let's send you down to South Africa and Lauren and see how she's getting on with the leopards.
For those of you who did join us yesterday, even for those who didn't, this is the remains of the buffalo carcass that actually was taken down by the Nkuhumas and the Avoca males that you have seen today. As you can see, not much remains. So for those of you who have just joined, my name is Lauren and Seb is on camera. And there's a few special creatures that I would like to introduce you to. Over my right shoulder, we have the Djuma clan of hyenas. Now, all of you have met the North clan up in the Mara, but we have some very fat, full, lazy members of the Djuma clan, and they are very, very dear to my heart. They have obviously gorged themselves on this carcass here, and they actually have a little part of the animal right there with them. They're sleeping next to it, which is entirely delightful. And the Djuma clan are a very small but amazing clan of hyenas. Now, I'm going to take a little drive closer so we can get a better look at them, because many people say that they look different from the Mara hyenas. So I'd love to know what you all think. So while I get closer, we're going to take a little look at exactly why I love the Djuma clan.
Hyena dens are a hive of activity, a haven of safety, and a playground for little fluffballs. Evenings are occupied with games of tag or tug. And the play makes the little ones braver and tougher each day. The mothers make sure that their cubs are well fed and protected. Putting up with needle teeth and applying discipline when necessary. A hyena den is always a hub of joyful entertainment.
Very sleepy hyenas. They're almost as full as the male lion was. Look at those stomachs, bulging. Now, the Djuma clan is, of course, the main clan in our area, the one that we have around here, and it's nowhere near as big as the North clan at all. Now, these two individuals, I'm not actually entirely sure of who they are, but there is 3 little cubs that belong to the Djuma clan, so they're still very much at the denning phase. They keep their cubs safe in a termite mound an old termite mound, and every night the mothers will come to the den and call them out for suckling. So it's slightly different from the Masai Mara, and I personally feel that these hyenas are not as hairy. They're not as fluffy. They're a lot less pleasing on the aesthetic approach, but they're still absolutely incredible, and their hair is much shorter. They tend to have a lot more wounds and scarring and marks on their ears than do the Mara individuals, and I often wonder if this is just due to the fact that they don't hunt as much here. The statistics say they hunt less, but they still do hunt. They scavenge more here, so there is of course the risk of injury from stealing from other animals. So this pair here, there is actually more hyenas around, but this pair here has obviously came across the carcass once the lions have gone and decided to completely indulge. So while we stay here and hold our noses, we're going to send you all back up to East Africa.
Sorry to tear you away from the Juma clan, but look. The buffalo have arrived on the scene. This cow is going to chase the lioness away. You can see how her head is up there. The lion's here to the right of me. And we're just going to sit very still. We're kind of caught in a position where we're in the middle of it. One of the lionesses is going now. Now she's going to try and create chaos. Now this isn't a full serious hunt. This is just the youngsters responding to a sign of aggression from those buffalo. But what you'll find with these two animals is that we so often have a standoff. And buffalo united are stronger and scarier than a big buffalo. Here comes one of the bulls. He's seen the lioness. The cubs are being shepherded to safety around behind us. We can't show you them at the moment. We don't want to take our eyes off what's going on, but rest assured, their mom has got up and moved them away. Look at the size of this bull. One large battering ram, 800 plus kilograms of power, with a solid bone skull and horns. The lioness has decided they're not having any of it. They're off. Sorry, my head's in the way. I'm just trying to make sure we're not in an awkward position. The lion's moving back again towards the cow. Now what they're looking to do here is panic the buffalo, separate and spot one weak link within the herd structure. Now at the moment it's just the two youngsters that are chasing these buffalo around. None of the adults have got involved yet, or at least none of the older, more experienced females have got involved yet. They're making sure that the cubs are safely out of the way, which it seems like they are at this point. Now, who knows exactly what's going through the heads of these youngsters? Are they thinking about a hunt, or are they thinking about those cubs and thinking about making sure that the buffalo don't come stumbling into them? You can just see the buffalo in the background there watching. They are notoriously myopic creatures, grumpy and myopic. Their sense of smell might be good, but their sense of hearing really isn't. And I can tell you that the wind is blowing from the lions to the buffalo. So right now, they certainly know that there's lions here, but they really didn't in the beginning. That display of aggression from that female at the start was her way of responding to a sudden and rather nasty shock of seeing lions in front of her. The cubs are now much further back. They're safe. A buffalo hunt could be really, really dangerous for lion cubs. Buffalo have been known to squash lion cubs, which is obviously not something that any of us want to see. Never Too Late says, how are my adrenaline levels? Well, they're a bit confused at the moment because I've gone from sort of cub cuteness to now all of a sudden the chaos of a buffalo hunt, and I'm not quite sure where my adrenaline levels are at. I have been in a position before during a lion buffalo hunt that I wouldn't want to repeat again, where I found myself having to reverse at high speed. So I'm also making sure that Craig and I have got an escape route should we need one. It's absolute pandemonium on Juma. I cannot believe the week that we've had. I certainly didn't expect this week to go this way. The buffalo are confused. They're not really, I wouldn't necessarily call them great thinkers of the wilderness. It takes some time for them to gather their collective brain cells together in order to formulate a plan. They're creatures of instinct and size. And when in doubt, an object can be sort of knocked over rather than moved around, and they approach problems like that in much the same way. Now, what they don't want to do is, now they know the lions have seen them. So what do? Do you turn your back on a pride of lions, or do you stay together as a group? And that's the decision that the buffalo are facing. Which way do we go? They're using the dense vegetation, keeping it between them and the lions. But they are still pacing backwards and forwards. I've lost sight of a lioness. I know the mother shepherded the cubs away, but I've lost one of the lionesses, and there is a chance, it's a slim chance, I'll admit, there's a slim chance that she's actually gone around the buffalo. I have to confess, I don't think so, though. I think she's just helping the mother with the cubs. MGN wants to know who has the advantage in the thickets like this when the buffalo are hidden away in vegetation like this. It really depends. The element of surprise has been lost, and with lions and buffalo, it's a backwards and forwards, and it just so happens that whichever one is feeling bolder at that exact moment has the advantage. Buffalo, of course, have the size advantage, and I think that if buffalo didn't panic, if they stayed together as a group and chased lions off every time, I don't think lions would be able to kill buffalo. But because they panic, because they separate, because there's always one that is liable to get left behind, they can't afford to keep chasing the lions away, wasting energy day after day. Now, that one that they killed on Cheetah took them 2 days of solid chasing. We'd seen that buffalo herd chase them 2 days earlier, and they harassed those buffalo for 2 days before they caught one, exhausting them, exhausting their resources. But because these buffalo don't have a choice but to come to these water holes, there's so little water left, they've returned to this spot, and they've found themselves faced with this lion pride once again. And in the dry season, we have seen what a formidable team the Nkuhumas actually are. There have been times where they've taken down 2 buffalo in the same hunt. So they know what they're doing. And whether they choose to move now or choose to move later, there's a good chance that these lionesses will be catching themselves a meal. And while they won't necessarily have the help of the 2 missing lionesses, the nice thing about lionesses is that they will share the food with them. We're going to keep an eye on what's happening here. In the meantime, we're going to send you across to James, for whom the lions hunting is the last thing on their mind.
Yep, I'm afraid so, and they need a big male like that, those Nkuhumas, to help them take down a buffalo, although they are formidable ladies, those. Our male has just moved, and I'm going to suggest that we do the same. Let's just quickly catch up with him. It'll take me a few seconds, because he's gone to find the other female. Naturally, he's done it as he appeared on television. It is the way of lions. They like to be private sometimes. We'll just see if we can quickly get around so that you can see him. This is slightly disconcerting. Oh. Three Pie, that's a really difficult question to answer. Why do lions need to mate so much to produce offspring? I'm sorry about the car in the background. There's really nothing we can do, I'm afraid. Because the lion's placed itself there. One of the reasons is that what it does is it makes sure that the female only ovulates when a male is being completely serious about the mating process. This is wonderful. Look at this. And so a lot of the mating happens, and she doesn't actually conceive. Here we go. Wonderful. And so what that means is that if there is a coalition of new males that has come in and killed cubs, and they start mating with the females, by not conceiving immediately, if those males are then ousted before they can establish themselves, it means that they don't have to go through the same process of losing cubs again. I think that's one of the reasons it takes so much mating. That was absolutely astounding. Great, so I'm glad we've seen that. We're going to stay here with these lions. They're much more active now. Lauren's hyenas seem to be eating something that nothing else in the bush is able to make a nutritious meal out of.
Our hyenas are up and they're having a little bit of a dispute here over what remains of a buffalo. Now, I'm not entirely sure that this is the Juma clan, which is utterly fascinating because the Juma clan den is really not far from here at all. We popped in at the den earlier to see if the cubs were there, and I think this is another clan, which is really, really interesting stuff. Now, of course, hyenas have a really strict hierarchy, so the higher ranking, more dominant ones tend to get to eat at a carcass first. So the one, oh, that's not too pleasant. The smell here is delightful, let me assure you. But there's definitely a younger one here, and their bellies are almost touching the floor, so they've obviously ate all afternoon. And of course, they're still trying to get a little bit more in their tummies here. Now, I must admit, I'm going to confess to you all, hyenas are my favorite animal. Lions are generally said to be very noble animals. Cheetahs are said to be graceful. Leopards, courageous. Hyenas, scavengers. Okay, back over to Jamie to see what's going on.
Now this elephant has come through, seen the lions, and unfortunately has decided that he's not, in fact, going to chase them. That's why we rushed you back over here. He lifted his ears up, stuck his trunk out in the air, and then made to chase the lioness, and she sat up like a scalded cat. You'll excuse the very poor idiom. And now everything is relaxed again, naturally. That's the lioness that mated. And out here, there's no doubt as to who the real kind of authority is. Lions will always give way to elephants. But one of the great mysteries for me out here is why it is that elephants should even bother to be nervous of lions. Even big bulls will chase lions away as if they could do any damage, which they certainly couldn't. But they do have very sophisticated anti-predator behaviors. Now let's see, there's another little bull coming up, well, youngish bull coming up. And if he gets wind of the lions, he's a bit older. He might be slightly less tolerant, but he's a little way off just yet. She's watching carefully now, though. She was flat in the grass. And now she's awake and looking. She does not want to be trampled by an elephant. And they've actually been surrounded by elephants the whole afternoon. I'm surprised they haven't been chased away. So just to reiterate for you, the lioness you're looking at now is the one that is very clearly in estrus. So she's the one that is mating with the tailless male, and the other lioness is probably coming into estrus, and that's why he wants to keep her around as well. Let's go back now to the Nkuhuma pride, who could use that fellow there in their quest for another buffalo meal.
They definitely could. While lionesses are mean hunting machines in their own right, when it comes to larger prey, having the extra weight and bulk of a male lion always pays off, even if he ends up getting his more than his fair share of the meal afterwards. Now, a male lion is roughly, give or take, about 100 kilograms or so heavier than the lioness. Not quite 100, it's probably around about 70 or so kilograms heavier than a lioness. And that extra bulk really makes a big difference. Now, these buffalo have actually moved off again, as far as I can tell. Somewhat hesitantly. I don't think that they wanted to create more distance between the lions and themselves without knowing what the lions are going to do. But the youngsters have definitely lost the interest that they had earlier. So while we wait to see what our lionesses get up to, let's go to one of the most efficient hunters of the Mara Plains with David.
What an exciting show it is today. Elephants with lions, buffaloes, lions chasing each other. But my hyenas are rather quiet here and just enjoying as the sun is setting down. Remember, you are watching CGTN Wild Wonderland Show and you're coming to you live from Africa. And currently I am at one corner of the Masai Mara. Now, this hyenas here is a clan that we call the Happy Zebra clan. And look at her behavior there. Why she's behaving that way is because right to our left, not very far from where we are, we got some zebras, and apparently, as their name suggests, and we call this clan the Happy Zebra clan. Let's have a look at the zebras on our left. And how lucky to have all these animals together. Remember, let us share your comments. Should you have any, please send questions on Twitter using CGTN Wild or Wild Wonderland. Now, this is part of the migration, these zebras here, and one big difference between the wildebeest and the zebras when they move, the zebras are always rather very quiet, while the wildebeest always go, nyeh, nyeh, nyeh. Jumbo, zebras. Well, I'll move on, try to get something else. In the meantime, we'll take you back to Steve with his lions.
Thanks, David. Well, we are with our lions still, and the lioness who did the yawning and stretching is now flat as a pancake on the rock. There we go. She heard me. And the lioness to the right has come out, but she's doing a little bit of rock camouflage herself. She did a bit of yawning and a bit of stretching, but she's found a more comfortable pillow in the form of her paw. Phyllis, that's a really good question. You want to know why lions seem to get more flies than leopards? I think leopards get also quite a few flies. We just haven't really been seeing any leopards up in the Mara. Down in South Africa, certainly in the summer months when there is lots of rain, the flies are quite uncomfortable. And we do find Hosana, the little chief, I've seen him many times, snapping away at the flies. His father Tingana, who I haven't seen to get too bothered with the flies. He kind of just seems to ignore them as comes with age. The lions up here have got moisture on their face, lots of blood, and I'm sure if we saw some leopards, we would see a similar sight with them here. The flies do not leave anybody alone. Any moisture, any flavor, they will be on it. You can ask us, they're all over us as well. Thankfully, they do keep to the wildebeest and the lions more so. But this is the sort of beginning of the movement, the yawning and the grooming, and hopefully in the next few moments they'll be up. But in the meantime, we're going to send you back down to the Sabi Sands in South Africa.
Well, I hope the grooming takes place with this hyena because it's non-stop crunching, munching on whatever may be left of this buffalo. I actually feel like it looks like a onesie that this hyena's just going to climb inside and wear as pajamas. So I There we go. We finally stopped. I believe you could all hear that. It's rather unpleasant. Let's see if it happens again. Oh, I must pull in at the skin there. Look at that. There really can't be much left in there, hyena. And of course, I mentioned previously that hyenas have this terrible reputation of being scavengers. Yes, they do scavenge. Oh. Can you hear that? Luckily, hyenas have got the jaws and the teeth to really crunch through anything. So all apex predators out here scavenge from one another. It's so common. Hyenas just seem to have a really bad rap for it. But it's a very, very, very common thing. And of course it's easy. Why bother making a hunt when of course you can steal? It's a very resourceful and opportunistic way of feeding. And that's exactly why the hyenas do it. But of course, it does leave them with a rather unfortunate reputation. So it looks like our hyena is going to be munching for some time, so let's send you back across to the little lion cubs.
So while the hyenas munch away, the cutest scene is playing out here. These two little troublemakers are obviously, like puppies or kittens or any small creatures with sharp teeth, want to chew on absolutely everything. And they are either chewing on each other or on the tail ends of some of the other lionesses. Now, their mother's pretty tolerant because, well, they're hers and she has to love them. But the other members of the pride are less impressed by these sort of interactions. And a couple of times these cubs have actually had a few smacks. Look at the lioness. Those teeth are sharp and they hurt. So they are less than impressed with the fact that they're being bitten. Oh, I'm not going to have a smack again. The thing is that these young lionesses know that if they give the cubs too hard of a smack and they start to cry, then mom might actually come and growl at them. So they've got to be cautious in the way that they respond. The buffalo have moved off completely, and these little ones have come back out of the thickets to join the rest of the pride. All is well. Giraffe Girl wants to know if the cubs have interacted, or did they interact with the evoker males. They were there yesterday with them, so I assume that yes, there was a degree of interaction, and they have been seen with the evoker males on kills before. So yes, these cubs have interacted with the dominant male lions of this area, and so far they've proved to be perfectly tolerant of them. There's always a tricky transition phase with new males that have moved in, where the lionesses aren't 100% comfortable with them and with little cubs, and then as they get to know them better, they settle down and everything becomes peaceful again. Oh, one's making a noise. Ah, of course, as I said that, he stopped. I wonder what's going to play out here during the night. The two missing lionesses will return to supplement the pride's numbers. Can you believe it? This is actually nearly the end of 14 episodes of what has been truly magical. It's been an absolute honor sharing it with all of you, and I'm so, so glad that we could show you the things that we've shown you.
What an incredible week it has been of these live safaris across 3 different countries in South Africa. It has been wild, it has been wonderful, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you all on board throughout all of it. So from me and the hyenas there, we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing the western horizon, And as you can see there, the sun is setting, and that might translate to time for me to say very many thanks. It has been a journey of 1 week together. Many thanks for your questions and comments and staying on board. Hopefully we'll be seeing you again very soon. On behalf of myself and Bungay, thank you and goodbye.
That time when we need to say our farewells. It's been an absolute pleasure showing you these wonderful scenes from the Mara. From myself, Steve Fulgenbridge, and Jeandre, goodbye for now.
Seems like an absolutely fitting way to finish things up here in Tanzania Serengeti National Park. Lions on a rock and a gateway to the plains of East Africa. It's been an absolute pleasure having you along for the ride. So from David and myself, I hope that you enjoyed the Tanzanian side of things, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.
What a tremendous privilege it has been to take you through the wonders of the Masai Mara in Kenya, Serengeti in Tanzania, and the Western Kruger in South Africa. We'll leave you with these magnificent lions and the elephants in the background. Thank you for joining us.
What a magical week of live migration action it has been on CGTN's Wild Wonderland live show. We've followed the herds of zebra, wildebeest and Thompson's gazelles galloping over the plains of East Africa, facing many perils along the way. For the carnivores, the long wait is over. A time of plenty has arrived. Hunters, scavengers, water terrors. But it's not only the vast herds that we've enjoyed. From the fertile East African savannas, we moved to the copper winter woodlands of the Western Kruger in South Africa. There, we spent time with the Prince of Cats. Africa has delivered us a week of wild magic. And it's been a huge privilege to share it with you here on CGTN's Wild Wonderland live show.